I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. All right, we're officially in. Roll call, please.
President Monge,
Here.
Vice President Matthews,
Here.
Member Furlong is absent, Member Bramscher,
Here.
Member Gagliardi,
Here.
Council Representative Cole is absent. And for staff and ex-officio members present today are Executive Director Frandle, Community Development Director Grams, and EDA Secretary Cherne, and Finance Director Winnick.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
If you don't mind, I'd just like to do a quick introduction of
Yes,
Riley
please.
Grams. He's just started last week, so he's our new Community Development Director. Just wanted to
Awesome.
introduce him.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yes.
All right.
That's good. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
So move. Let's get a second.
Seconded.
Second, Peter. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Approval of minutes. Do we need to go over anything with that, or just to get approval for it?
Nope, just
Okay.
go for it unless there was any issues.
All right, can I get a motion for approval of minutes? So moved. So moved.
Second?
So Brandon, council for, also, Joe, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody, you want to say something? You're not public. You sit there till your turn. All right, good.
Anybody online there, Chris?
Do we do online?
Nope.
Oh, more Zoom, that's right.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Up to you.
EDA, thank you. EDA discussions and action items. We have Mr. Winnick, our Finance Director, here to discuss several topics, starting with EDA budgeting and staffing.
Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much, EDA President and EDA members. From I think it was from the last EDA meeting, we were talking about the budget. There were some questions regarding allocation of the Community Development Director's time to the EDA. So I'm going to kind of walk you through some of that information. I'm going to give probably a little bit more than you were anticipating as far as the budget and the financial components to it, because part of it is that we are in the process of developing the 2025 budget, which you will have an input. Again, the final approval is up to City Council, but definitely want to have you participate in that. So I'm going to give you some financial information. And then the second item that I'm going to be talking about tonight is the facade improvement program that has been being discussed. I've reached out to two cities, so I have some information from the City of Oakdale and the City of Northfield on some of about their programs, so we'll talk about that too. So the first item is going to be the EDA budget and staffing. And kind of want to give you a snapshot look of at the end of last year, based upon our financial statements that have already been audited, that the Economic Development Authority has cash and investments of $479,000. You have a fund balance of $528,000. So that's where you were at the end of the year. Usually when you're starting to look at programs, really the cash is the bigger one to look at, because you can see the fund balance is higher, but part of that is due to that you have assets held for resale, which is a parcel that the EDA owns, and obviously that's much more difficult to turn into liquidity. You'd end up having to sell the property to convert it over to cash. So really when we start to look at any programs or how much money you have, I really like to look at what you have in cash. So you're doing halfway decent with $479,000. So that's keep that in mind, especially when we get to discussing the facade improvement program and the makeup of that program, whether it's a loan, whether it's a grant, and so forth, as we talk a little bit more about that one. Right now, the past couple of years, we've been levying about $207,000 for the EDA. Per statute, and I have the statute up there for you, 469107, it's a calculation based upon a percentage multiplied by your total estimated market value, and I use the prior year total estimated market value because it's final. Finals don't come out for a while because there can be abatements and so forth that can change through the assessor's process of open book that can change some of the values in the city. So I usually calculate it on that because it can be no more than that amount. So if we were to go to the maximum amount that the EDA could levy, it would come out to approximately $248,000. You have to keep in mind that that would be about a $41,000 increase, and again, that has an impact on our residents because that'll be passed on their property taxes. Right now, where we're at in the 2025 budget, and again, you can stop me at any moment, ask any questions. Want you to have a complete understanding because at the end of the day, not today, but before we get ready to have City Council, your approval and City Council's approval on the levy that we're going to launch, which we have to certify to Ramsey County as our home auditor by the end of September. So usually by that second meeting of the City Council in September, we certify our maximum levy. What it means by when we certify that maximum levy is that's the most we can levy. We definitely can come down from that standpoint before we do a final levy, which is adopted usually in December after a truth and taxation hearing. So right now what we have in there is we've been, actually I said 207,000, it's actually been about $201,000 that we've been levying the last few years. Very conservative as far as estimating other revenues. The $2,000 is due to interest. Obviously, you can see it fluctuates greatly. In 2022, it was actually a negative amount because it's interest in the changes that happen in market values on your investments. And if you can remember, in 2022, prior to 2022 in COVID, interest rates went way, way down. If you could get 0.5% on an investment, you were doing well, especially the way that a local government can invest because they have to be very secure. And then when interest rates rise higher, your market value on your investment, and that's what we have to report it as, goes down. And so we actually showed a loss even though we did get interest income. Last year, obviously, we did much better as interest rates were coming down a little bit from our investments. We showed approximately a $20,000. So the $2,000 is a very conservative amount that we believe that we can realize. And then there's the expenditures by category of personnel supplies, contractual services. We have no capital. And then the transfer has been a historical transfer of $10,000 from the EDA that goes to the general fund. We will go and look at line items and both the revenues and the expenditures. And revenues, again, there's not a lot to show for that. Again, you have your property tax levy up on the top there of that almost $201,000. Market value adjustment, not budgeting anything for that. You can see where both 21 and 22, that was a negative amount as interest rates are going up. Last year, as they were dropping down a little bit, the market values came out better. And then the next line is your investment income, and that's the actual interest that you're actually getting off of your investments. So you have to realize that the market value adjustment is really an unrealized gain or loss, but it has to be shown for financial purposes. The only time that you would realize a gain or a loss on an investment if you were to sell it before it matures. We don't do that. We take it all the way through. So even in some years it'll show a loss, it'll end up showing a gain later on and offsetting to zero. But it fluctuates from year to year just based upon the interest rates and how long of a duration the investment is for. Right now, we don't have anything that's budgeted for refunds and reimbursements. Again, that's an unpredictable line. The expenditures right now, and this is where you'll have an opportunity to adjust the expenditures. Right now, I have the revenue and the expenditures equaling out, so it's a balanced budget. We will be discussing a little bit more on that personnel, but you can see right now for the 2025 proposed, it's $145,000 in total personnel costs, and we're going to take a little deeper dive in that in a second. And then there's just a small amount for office supplies, and then you can see the different contractual service line items, the general contract and consulting services being the biggest one. And that's really what the EDA was looking at, instead of having the community economic or the community development director's position being allocated so high, because currently it's at 50% to the EDA, is to reduce that to some percentage, and we'll talk about that again in a little while here. And then those salary savings would be utilized, and so we would end up increasing that consultant services line item so you can hire a consultant to do what the EDA wishes to accomplish. And so that's really kind of where our discussion is really going to take off. But I kind of want to give you an idea of where you're at with your budget now. If you have any questions with that before we kind of do a deeper dive in on that salary allocation. Now, any questions? We'll take a look at, right now, how the personnel summary is allocation of time. Right now, even all the way through 2021, all the way through 2025, the city manager is allocated at 10% of their time. The community development director, we didn't have one in 21 and 22. Position was established in 23, has been at 50%. And that was established by a former city manager and approved by city council. And then the administrative assistant that's assigned to the EDA, we allocate 20% of that individual's time. And then there's the assistant to city manager, HR, that 10% of their time is allocated. So obviously you can see the biggest one is that community development director at 50%, which is a decent price tag that's coming out included in the personnel services. So that's really the discussion tonight, is what do we do with that? How far do we lower that in the 2025 budget? If you remember in the last presentation, my recommendation would be no objection to reducing that allocation in the EDA, so you could then utilize those funds for a consultant in the future. But if we could do it kind of over time, would be the best way of doing it. So what I mean by that is, if at the end of the day you want to have 0% of a community development director's time allocated to the EDA, which I would not recommend, we would do it step down over a number of years. We wouldn't take a huge 50% reduction right away, because whatever reduction the EDA does gets shifted over to the general fund. And the general fund then, so one way or the other is paid, it's paid by the property tax owners. But this is going to be a tough budget year for the general fund. We have all of our contracts coming up. We have just the normal cost of living increases just for our supplies, our contractual service agreements. For council members, I did a pre-budget look a couple of months ago, And just at that point in time, with a very small conservative amount that was in there for cost of living for the contracts, we were already looking at a 7.5% levy increase. So I want to frame that as we move to the next slide. The next slide is going to show you some options for you to discuss. Sure.
Quick question, Bud. Just high level, what we're talking about is over the last 3-4 years, what we've levied is roughly 200 grand.
Correct.
We could increase that this year, but what we've levied has just offset basically the cost of staff. And I mean, it's just offset. We're not really saving any money, correct? I mean,
Not necessarily.
yeah, break that down a little bit for me.
Yeah, so if you look here
Yep.
at the bottom line in the summaries, that was the first slide for the budget. It'll talk about the change in net position. And you can see in 2021, it's a positive $143,000.
Okay.
That means your levy, your expenditures were only approximately 56,000, while you had a levy of 198. So your position increased. In other words, more cash, more fund balance. You can see in 22, obviously there's a negative 56,000. The contributing factor to that $56,000, the EDA approved a forgivable loan. That's reflected in that number
Got it.
underneath the contractual services. Then we move to 2023 actual, and you can see we're $72,000 to the positive. So what that is showing is an indication of just some of the past history is you have not spent all of the money that's been budgeted. And so the levy, that's part of the reason why my recommendation has been to keep the levy the same, because you have not used it. Now, that definitely can change in the future, especially if you start to do this facade improvement program, where you're going to start to spend some of that money, and maybe it's above and beyond what the current levy amount is, then your net position is going to be dropped down.
Okay. Well, that makes perfect. What I'm seeing is the levy's coming in at 200 grand, and I'm seeing, the total of expenses of 200 grand.
Correct.
And
And
I
that's
just wanted, I understood, I wanted to be clear
absolutely.
on,
Yeah. And it's just part of my preference is trying to build a budget that is balanced.
absolutely, absolutely.
In other words, trying to justify why you're even levying that dollar amount.
Yeah.
And so one could question, I'm sorry,
Came on in '22, right?
I'm sorry.
Community Development Director came on in '22 budget-wise?
Was not included in the budget, but yes, they did come on in midterm of the year.
Okay.
Yep, so they'll be included in the expenditures side to it, yep.
$10,000 transfer. Did you say something? Did I miss that? Out the bottom there?
Yeah, it's transferred, it's historically been transferred to the general fund.
Oh, okay.
So,
Will that $10,000 always stay the same, or are we talking about if we keep decreasing the salary, are we talking about moving more money over into the general fund out of here
I mean,
with that? Or
it's
what?
always an option, it's not my recommendation.
Okay, that's,
Right now, between the enterprise funds, HRA and EDA, because all enterprise funds contribute to the general fund, it's a total of like $820,000. Absorb that $820,000 on a levy hit, because you can use about approximately with our levy, $71,000 increases 1% in the levy. So right there, you're looking at, just under 12% levy increase. That's not going to happen. Over time, the ideal would be to be able to get away from transferring.
right.
it
You're
just-
just moving funds from one pot to another, you're not solving the problem
Right.
at the end of the day.
Right, and, as, the EDA president, who's also our mayor, in the pre-budget meeting that I had was to make the city council aware that of the cities that are pretty much fully within Ramsey County, we have the second highest property tax rate. And our utility rates, with the exception of our electric, are all much higher than our local communities. And part of that is attributed because you're transferring funds from those enterprise funds, the utilities, to the general fund. So the general fund is not, we're not levying enough money for our core services that the city is to provide at this point in
What
time.
I'm hearing is that's not a good end solution to do that.
And it should. Now, over time, that's changed drastically. Way before, that I came here, and I'm not saying that I'm the one who made this happen, but at one point in time, that transfer total was like $1.3 million on an annual basis. So it has been dropped down. It's just that in time, we should be moving it down further and further. To me, that's the most sensible way to manage something. If you're transferring it from an enterprise fund or EDA or HRA, it's because there's adequate funds that are in there and they're utilized for one-time purchases. In other words, for capital. They're not utilized for an ongoing basis. But that's something that's going to take, again, time to be able to adjust moving it forward.
You can't fix 1.3 million over 1 year?
No, sorry, I wish we could, but no.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's, I gave 6 options. All of the options will show as a percentage allocated to the EDA, and option number 1 is where you're currently is 50%. What that dollar amount is for the 25 budget is, $90,000. And then I show, especially when I go to option 2 through 6, what the impact is on the EDA, what the impact is then to the general fund, because again, it will be shifted to the general fund, and then ultimately what the impact is on the levy for the general fund. So again, I gave options of increments of 5% if we were to look at reducing that 50%. Again, it's my recommendation that we do a step-down approach over multiple years to get to some sort of percentage that, the EDA says is what is the more accurate reflection of the community development director's time that's devoted to EDA. And so if you drop, from 50% to 45, what it does is it reduces the expenditures that are in the EDA by 9,000, shifts it over to the general fund, and it increases the levy of 0.13%. And so if you go all the way down to option number 6, now we've done a 25% reduction to 25% from 50 to 25. That's $45,000 that it would save the EDA, but then that shift goes over to the general fund, and it comes to a 0.63% levy increase on the general fund side. And obviously, if you were to reduce the EDA community development completely to 0, again, take that 90,000 divided by about 71,000, and you can clearly see we're probably in the 1.1, 1.2% increase in the city's levy. And again, a reminder, this is really going to be a tough 2025 budget as far as levy for the city. So this is really kind of up to me. The discussion is twofold. One, is there a sense or feel at this time, and you can always revisit this over time, is what is the percentage that you believe that the community development directors should be at? And that's probably not something we're going to be able to ascertain today. It'll be something that we'll have to revisit. But what would you like to see it move from or anything from that 50% today as we prepare the 2025 budget.
I have a question maybe for you guys, because I went back and read a couple meeting notes, but I obviously haven't gone back that far. If there's a desire to reduce that $10,000 amount, which I think makes sense, this seems counterproductive, that it would potentially increase the need for the general fund to need funds, probably from this fund. So I guess what was was it just a question of how much time is this position devoted to assisting the EDA? Is that really the crux?
When the position was originally filled, it was a hybrid, EDA plus community development. So that's where they came up with that. But it didn't pan out that way. So then we thought we would just use more along the lines of resources, outsource resources to be able to get the EDA word out. So,
Okay.
I don't know, did you, at your last position, did you do anything with the EDA or anything like that, or?
I was the executive director of the EDA.
Okay. Interesting. So how did you go about?
What we ended up doing was, and this is in the city of Osseo, for those, that's where I recently worked. I was the city administrator there for the last 9 years, and I worked there for 12 years in total. But what we ended up doing was we were transferring $50,000 from the EDA general fund to the city's general fund to account for staff time. And then about usually every 3 or 4 years, all of our staff did a detailed hour check for every amount of time that we were spending on the EDA, so that we could kind of rein that in and make that a little bit better. But it ebbed and flowed with, depending on
Projects.
development projects happening. If there was really nothing going on, that time really dropped. So yeah.
So your position was paid by part of the EDA then?
Partly, yeah. Again, that was that. I think we were at one point had a $70,000 transfer, and then we dropped to $50,000 again, because every couple of years we just did a reallocation of how much time is actually being spent on EDA business for each of our staff members. But that included everybody. That staff attorney time. Well, attorney was a separate line item in the EDA budget, so I can't include that. But other staff members put together packets and minutes and all that kind of stuff.
So you kind of kept a tally of what you did.
We did, yeah. We tried our best to tally.
How did that work out, trying to keep a tally to that? Was that successful?
It was a pretty darn good, a pretty good approximation. And, it's hard because in my position, I was working on multiple different things at different times, and if I stopped, I remember an hour of EDA time. But it was, it was a pretty good approximation.
Because with the last position we had no idea of how much time was, and it was just one of those things, how do we keep track of it? Can you keep track of it?
It's all dependent on what's happening. If there's nothing, not much happening, those hours are gonna be really low.
And so what Riley's suggesting should be being done on a periodic basis, every couple of years. It doesn't necessarily need to be that everybody's writing down each hour that they have. It means that you create a survey and give it to individuals, and they take the best, guesstimate of the percentage of their time that's allocated to different. The problem that really comes down to here is that a past city manager, before the individual was even hired, said, we're moving forward with a community development director's position. To fund this, 50% of their time is going to be here, 20% is going to be here, da-da-da-da-da. Now, the question really comes down to is that EDA Commission has said, hey, guess what? I don't really think I've received 50% of benefit from the community development director. So now we need to kind of adjust that. Now, in our last meeting, I had proposed, do we make an adjustment now? Do we still want to move forward with a consultant at that time, or did we want to wait to after we've hired a community development director to see what skill sets that individual comes? Now, in a week and a half, I'm pretty thoroughly confident that we've made one heck of a great choice in a community development director that has a lot of experience. Now, do they have enough of 50% of their time to go towards the EDA? Highly doubt it. Is there some percentage the thing? And again, we can relook at this at any point in time, and we should be looking at this periodically. But 50%, I think, is way too high. So I think we need to, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to step it down, not just for the impact that it'll have on the general fund, but to hopefully that we can right-size that over time. To what is actually being allocated, or time actually is being allocated to the EDA. And then one other point, council member, and I'm gonna say you're last, okay. It is not my intention, nor would I support presenting to city council if you were to drop your expenditures on the EDA because of the allocation, let's say $20,000. It wouldn't be to then increase the transfers $20,000 to offset that. Again, my opinion is we shouldn't be heavily reliant on all of those transfers, especially if we're doing allocation of the times of staff. That should really be where you heard from Riley, they're doing a transfer, just a transfer. We've got a little bit different mechanism. Take the transfer out of the way. We're doing a little bit different mechanism, which is totally allowable. But it's really to look at those allocation of time component to it.
Also, when we were discussing the position, we didn't think we'd find a unicorn, because we were like, EDA plus community development, we thought that was gonna be impossible. Well, it sounds
Absolutely.
like we came across one anyways. So
absolutely.
maybe we have to understand and see where that value is to be able to help us relook at this now.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, and thanks for mentioning that. I mean, the last couple months, we've walked away from the meetings of, we're spending this money. We don't feel, as a board, we're getting the return on investment on the money that we're putting into the staff at the time. And super glad you're here. I would absolutely, definitely not vote if we have a capable person that can lead us in the right direction as to then go and outsource this third party. That's wasting money.
Right.
That don't make any sense. But I think those are the frustrations we've had
Yep,
that we
no,
try to resolve.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we absolutely expected Riley to be sitting here, which we're super glad you are here. But that definitely wasn't the expectations leaving last month.
I was a believer.
You're always
You
positive.
can get out of the chair here.
You're always positive. I do go back to, and we're part of the overall success of the city from a budget standpoint, okay? I do think that we should focus on the next few meetings, trying to figure out how we're going to step this down, whether it's 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and have a plan in place, and then stick to that plan.
Yep.
Not change the plan in a year. Let's stick to the plan to help stabilize the taxes in the city.
At least
We've got to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yep.
And we're just one part of how can we help.
Yep.
Well, part of the help is having a game plan, seeing it, and then executing it. And we need to do that.
And if we can keep, like you did at your other place, where we got an idea of how many hours. So that way we look and thought, whoa, I didn't realize we used that many hours, or, wow, I thought we would use more hours, so.
So I'm gonna,
Judging off of that.
And how can we support Riley to get him up to speed on things that are happening in the city, projects? How can you help? How can you not help? This isn't your expertise. and understand as well, as far as the budget is, I know it's gonna vary and things are gonna come up, but a lot of the big projects have happened in the city over the last 15 years that have finished. What moving forward do we have on our radar over the next 2 years, the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Where are we? I do think we need to have a plan, budget, and there might be some vacant properties are like, is the EDA interested in this? Where do you want to go? And things will pop up, but I think we should have a pretty good understanding and idea of expectations of where we want to go over the next 5 years. And then Riley can be like, yeah, I can help you with this stuff. Okay, how much time is it gonna take, Riley? Like, let's look at this. Let's put a game plan together here, man.
We've already started that process.
And also,
Then I'll shut up.
no, just like right across Margaret Commons over there, they're calling it now, that development, we got all the information together, the PUDs, is it? Am I saying it right?
Yep.
PUDs, and got that ready to go, and we got the Sidewinder, so we are what we have, so it's good. But like I said,
Good.
keep moving forward,
Yes.
and whatever we come with as far as other things, but at least we know what we got now and how much it's worth. We've done appraisals, which we never did before, so now we understand how much this land is really valued at. It's not what we paid for it, how it got there, whatever. Now we're looking at it in 2024, what can we actually do with this, how much it's gonna cost, and understand what we have there.
Yeah.
So that's a step in the right direction.
So Dan, knowing the budget as well as you do, does it make sense to try to move that down, say 10% down to the 40?
We're on the same page. I think you read my mind. That's exactly where I would go at first. And the ultimate plan is, I don't know where that bottom is yet.
Yeah.
It may be 20, it may be 30%. Actually, Riley probably is a little bit better gauge right now. If we were to just say, if you were to just give us 1%, what did you think on an average that you at OFFICIO?
Good question. It was probably 20-ish%, I bet,
Yeah.
somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's what I would say probably would fall out at. So the plan would be that it would take us 3 years to get there. And every year it would, drop down until we got to that 20%. That way it's being a good fiduciary responsibility of lowering the EDA, showing the costs truly and being funded from the general fund. And what that means is it's an $18,000 impact, which is a 0.25%. I think, it is what it is. But we do need to start making that shift and that move. Because I firmly believe 50% is way too high, especially with all the other responsibilities that Riley has. There's no way he could dedicate 50% of his time to the EDA.
Plus, we don't want to add to the burden, just like.
Exactly.
So we're willing to, take that 10, get more information, understand what we have
Yeah.
as far as what we're using for resources and hours, and then we'll be able to adjust accordingly. I think that's the right way to do it.
And then, just at this point in time, even though you can increase your levy, I wouldn't do that. I would take that 18,000 and move it into the consultant so we have a balanced budget, but I wouldn't increase the levy until there's a plan in place that shows a demonstrated need that you're going to end up having to have more funds.
It's not free money.
It's not free money, and that's the thing is,
This isn't, we're just asking and, somebody's paying for it.
Right. And as you can see that, you got about a $200,000 budget right now. So from a fund balance standpoint, I'm going to recommend, which I have officially for the general fund balance policy of 50%. Why? Because we don't get our property taxes until, this year we'll get them June 20th. So it's almost 6 months into it. So you need to have half of that budget available for cash flow. So if you take half that budget, you're approximately $100,000. I already showed you where your cash is at. You're at $479 in cash, so you're $379 above that. What is your demonstrated need? Why you need to have an increase in your levy? it isn't there. So I would keep the levy where it is at this point in time and ratchet down that allocation and then develop your plan.
Mr. President, I do apologize. I have a previous engagement I got to get to this evening, but I just wanted to say thank you for the warm welcome, and I was glad to be a part of this, of tonight's discussion, so.
Appreciate it. Thank
Looking
you
forward to
very
working
much.
with you all.
Thank you.
Riley.
Thank you.
Everything sounds good.
Okay. Now we'll move on to item number B. Facade improvement program. So I've reached out to Oakdale and the city of Northfield, Minnesota. I'm kind of excited about the city of Northfield, Minnesota, because their program is actually called Facade Improvement Grant Program. It's actually dedicated to a certain area. They've got a map that shows, you know, which businesses qualify for the program in certain
Historic
area.
downtown, too.
And so, I mean, that one really did really good. But some of the bits of information that I had found was that the city of Oakdale called theirs a building rehabilitation loan program. The program has been discontinued. They had about a dozen loans, somewhere in the range of about 10 to 20%. They'd have approximately about a 10-year repayment plan. The terms, because I do have the information attached behind it for both of these organizations about their programs, which I think will be very beneficial as the city tries to, if the city decides to move forward with this, instead of reinventing the wheel, there's a lot of good information in there about the terms, how there's actually applications and so forth that's attached to your documentation. But what their terms were is that it was amortization over 20 years. The loan was for 5 years, but you could renew the loan for an additional 5 years to get up to that 10-year program. They had, according to their community development director, it was approximately about a 2% interest. And then you can see this, they call it standard operating policy. That's their program, kind of defines the description of the program, what are eligible costs, what are the terms of the agreement, and so forth. And then there's an application for that. Part of why they got out of doing it was that in the beginning, again, this is a loan program, so they have to be repaid, that the city was administering it, and it became too cumbersome for the city to administer. And so then they turned it over to an organization to take over that administrative component to it, and you know they get slight payment every month to process those loan payments. They're no longer doing it, so it moved back to the city, and so they, according to the community development director, they did away with the program. City of Northfield, it's a grant, so there's not that repayment. It's not a loan. It doesn't have interest. They started the program in 2020, ran it for 3 years, and then they just recently restarted it. I've got attached for you, you know, so you can start to look at some of the items, not necessarily that we're going to get there tonight and go through all of those components to it, but it'll talk about their program terms and the eligible properties. And then there's an application. And again, as we develop ours, I think these will be very good to kind of mimic or, you know, instead of reinventing the wheel. One of the questions that I had asked the Northfield Community Development Director is that there are state statutes that are out there for HRA, port authorities, EDAs, da-da-da-da-da. It tells you what authorities that they have. I can find and have it with me a state statute that talks about it's 469.192 economic development loans. that says that statutory city, home rule city, and economic development authority may make a loan to a business, a for-profit or nonprofit organization, or an individual for any purpose that the entity is otherwise authorized to carry out under sections, and it's basically the rest. So I can find authority for us to do a loan. I can't find authority for us to do a grant. So, you know, you either need to have, you know, legal or somebody point out to us where that authority is. His response to me was, look through the statutes. Well, I think I've been through them about 15 times. I still can't find it. I may miss it. But I was talking to our executive director, Frandle, and one of the things that we were looking at is that, okay, if we can't do a grant, we still have two options. One, you can do a loan with some sort of bearing interest to it, or you can do a loan and have it a forgivable loan. The city has done that in the past. And so then it sunsets, straight line amortization, it sunsets over a number of years based upon certain criteria. And at the end, there's no interest and the loan just goes away after, let's say, 5 years. For sake of conversation. So one way or the other, I think we can achieve what the city is looking for in this program. But the city and the EDA really needs to start it, is to develop, is there a designated area that this loan is, or this, I'll just say grant, even though we know grant can be a little bit different term, that eligible properties are eligible to utilize this fund. How much money do you want to do? I think Oakdale had a minimum of $5,000, and then they had kind of a different caveat depending on the size of the program itself. They had that if the total project's cost was less than $100,000, they could, again, theirs was a loan, that you could get up to 50% up to $25,000. If it was greater than $100,000, you could get 25% of your total project cost up to $50,000. That's how they structured theirs. City of Northfield, a much smaller city.
Do you know the population from Northfield? I was curious.
Not off the top, I don't.
Because they are kind of like us, a bedroom. They have a small, I don't think they have a lot of manufacturing, so they're more of a bedroom community.
Yeah. And they have, according to their community development director, right now they budget like $20,000 a year is what they're looking at. Again, that can change with every budget year. But they have it in there that the grants will pay for 30% of the total project's costs up to a maximum grant amount of $10,000 per property. And again, so there's a lot of different variations that the EDA will have to, discuss and come to some sort of agreement and then draft up an overall program, who qualifies, how we go through it and kind of administer set dollar amounts and all that type of stuff. But there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done. But I think we have some good boilerplates that are attached here to help us out in the future.
Yeah, this is great stuff. The one word that scares me in there, and we've talked about it as a board, just is loan. It's not your guys' job. That's not the city's job, in my opinion. You guys aren't a bank. I personally think we should stay away from that. Structure it however way from a 5-year loan, interest payments, monthly payments. Who's going to keep track of that? Who wants to keep track of it? I don't think we've ever, even the facade improvement program that they did before, I don't believe there was any loan structured to that.
Yeah, no.
It was, from my understanding, you're having outside work done to, you're your building, it's 20 grand, you know, the city is on board to give you 10, match 50% of it, you know?
We'll bring in
I
legal.
see the whole, like, the structure part of it for the businesses and, you know, deciding on where we want to target it and have this done. But I see the businesses, we promoting this, but the businesses and business owners putting some time and effort into this about, you know, I want such and such done, here are the bids for it, and coming in and presenting to us. The more time that the business owners are tied to this and have put some time into it, the more they're gonna get out of it, rather than, oh, here's 5 grand, here's 10 grand. Let's, you know, have them do some due diligence, make it meaningful. And I think it's gonna be more impactful for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Put some time and energy into it.
absolutely agree.
Grants, you feel like you're chipping in. I mean, it's one of those things, hey, you know, we'll help you. We want you to do this.
Yeah. And it's a relationship builder. It's a relationship builder. Set some times and have them come in and present
Yep,
to us.
yep,
'Cause there's a lot of new businesses that have moved in to the city of North St. Paul over the last 5 years, 10 years, that we don't know about.
Right.
Great opportunity to build those relationships.
Indeed.
yeah. Fantastic idea, just some caution with that is that make sure that you develop criteria, make sure you develop some sort of scoring, weighting, and justification, make sure the process is transparent. So it would be good to have it, you know, being publicly, you know, available. And, you know, make sure that you're scoring it.
You're treating everybody.
You're treating everybody.
Absolutely.
fair, yeah. Yeah, that's my caution. No different than, you know, whether we're doing an RFP, you know, which is a kind of a best value solicitation. There should be a criteria. You need to follow that criteria. The scoring should be there. You total it up, and yeah, and that's your winner because you're not, or the one you choose because it's not based upon, you know, necessarily a cost component to it. And you want to take out any type of potential, you know, optics of favoritism or anything away from anything else. So, but I think the program, there's a huge benefit for the city, especially in designated areas, especially like in our downtown area, where the city's already invested quite a bit in there, spruce it up. You know, the old adage is, you know, you build it, they will come. The city has invested a lot in residential in the downtown area. You know, from an economic development standpoint, that's building density to make it sustainable for businesses to be there. Now it's to make it attractive that somebody else wants to come into the downtown area and do business. So, great thoughts, great program. You got a lot of work to do to
We do.
get it off the ground.
For sure. Be able to, these notes here was really good, so be able to figure out some more as far as what they do for grants and different things like that.
Sure. So those are my 2 items. If you have any further questions, we'd be more than glad to answer either that, or I will leave you to continue moving on your rest of your business for the evening.
The next steps to try to get some more information about. That's where you have to.
Yeah. I agree with Dan saying. I do agree with him on, it's gotta be a strong criteria.
You got everything you can from Northfield? Because I was reading through some of the stuff that's not allowed, some of the stuff that is allowed for the improvements and things like that. No HVAC, no roofing, no, you know, stuff like that. So,
By the way, their population is 21,000.
okay. So, but, you know, their program was successful. They're renewing it. Well, right now, if we go by just what information we got, Oakdale's tanked. Northfield smaller grants is succeeding, so they re-upped it. So as much information we can get from Northfield, I think, too, to understand what their success is would really help us.
Yeah, and every community is going to be different.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, no different than, looking at the right allocation for the community development position. It's something we need to reevaluate. So we'll see, you kick something off, you can always tweak it and modify it, and you try to make it as successful as possible. But a grant is more free money versus a loan. I think you right away start off, I think, with a better chance of it being successful if it's a grant. And I think that's part of, Oakdale had a loan where Northfield has a grant.
And we can revisit that every year. Maybe some years we can get
Absolutely.
30,000, some years, it's gonna be less. But just understand the
Absolutely.
kitty without having to raise
The levy.
anything like that to understand.
Yeah.
We have a little more control over it.
Yeah, and, ultimately for, all of our residents and taxpayers that are looking at this and saying, okay, well, in certain ways, you're help subsidizing a for-profit organization. But the flip side to it is, if it is very successful and you do bring in additional business, you're raising your property taxes, which then helps offset, what, our residents is going to be paying over time. So, that's what you're trying to achieve, and I leave that for people with much longer vision than I have. But yeah, that's what you're trying to achieve with an economic development. But yeah, good information, good stuff, good discussion. Welcome to the two new members. Hope to see you around a little bit more. Thank you very much. If you have any question or anybody else has any questions, I usually can be found in the corner downstairs. Brian lets me out every once in a while just to get some sunlight, but outside of that, I'm there.
That tan looks pretty good. You mentioned a little more than the rest of us.
Shoot.
Must be that new pool.
Shoot.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item up is the EDA meeting schedule. So for a while there, we had some pretty good development going on in town. As you know, that has backed off now that we've had such a renaissance, really, in development. Once upon a time, the meetings were quarterly. They changed when we had a lot more things going on. It's been brought up a little while back about the potential of looking at going back to quarterly meetings, and if we needed to do or meet sooner than that, we could call meeting as needed. So that's kind of what the topic is. Also, we were waiting for our new members, so we have one more to go. We had some pretty good prospects. Some couldn't do it, so we're still looking at that, but some more to come on that. But
Yeah, we got one more.
One more to fill.
And then Terry said he's looking at winding her down, so.
at the end of the year, yep, exactly. So just looking for input from you guys on what your thoughts are, if the quarterly would work, and if we need to do it more often, we can call a special meeting.
One thing I would like to mention before too, just to understand, we do have a little bit coming up here that's, soon as the Lilly building's done, we're on the clock. We have a year to try to get, commercial into the bottom level of it. So what happened during their final phase, financing, commercial space went down. So to be able to have them finish it, they had part of the loan was they have a year, and if they can't fill it within a year, then they can start putting people on the main level.
Is that what they prefer, or?
They preferred he wants to hit the ground running and help us get commercial. He'd rather have commercial there. So that's why we're a little bit under as soon as they get their certificate of occupancy and we're ready to go, we got a year on the clock that he said he's gonna reach out to, because they've done a lot of developments, he's gonna reach out to the different groups and everybody else, so we're gonna have that kit in the ground, we hope we can rent out and see how it's gonna be divided. I know down there, they did lower it from 14 to 10 or something like that, so they did lower the ceilings a little bit as far as that, but there's different ways they can configure about how many spaces people need, so that's gonna be the one that's gonna be low under the gun for us. So we have to try to hit that one as hard as we can right off the bat.
Or if it's a bigger facility, widen it up and they can take up 2 spaces as well.
Exactly,
So, yeah,
that's,
they can
that's
accommodate.
where, if we can find it, they'll be able to mold it. We just have to figure out what it is.
You know
Right.
what the size of that commercial allocations of the space is?
Well, a lot of them were live-work, which is, have your little store in the front and live in the back, and they were like about 1,500 square feet, something like that.
Something like that.
So they had them like in a row, but then people could buy 2, and just like condos, you buy those office condos. I want 2, then they could take the wall out or not put a wall there.
Okay.
So that's kind of where they were divided at first, was what they call the live-work, where it wasn't huge space, it was long, so you had your, which is great for, you don't have to live there, but your insurance guy, there you go. And you want to have your microwave and your stuff in the back, and then, and then up front, put your little tie on and go see a customer.
Just what I need is another building.
Your clip-on tie.
Your clip, not enough time to tie it. So that's the only real, besides doing on the facade, that's the only one that has a little bit of urgency behind it right
So
now.
I hear you want to have another meeting sooner than later.
I would like to be able to do another one, maybe, we don't know when it's going to be done yet.
Yeah, they were talking late fall at
Late fall still?
earliest, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And that's when the
maybe,
year starts, or is this,
as soon as they get the, I think,
Certificate of occupancy.
yeah, as soon as they get that, then we're on the clock.
gotcha.
Yep.
Be nice to have a few people all ready to go before that clock starts.
Would be.
And just understand where,
Kind of kickstart it.
but, what can we do as a group to try to help that with, understanding where, Riley, you gonna have a little conversation? Is this something you already talked about with
That's
him?
something we'll talk about here in a minute when I get to staff updates.
Okay, good, all right. So, I mean, it doesn't, we can meet in August, I guess, or if we wanna keep going, now, we're still looking for another person.
Yep.
What do you feel about,
I think we should meet. We've got to get this, we've got a lot of work in
Yep.
front of us for this facade improvement program. And to start helping the Lilly building, I think we should meet.
yep, I mean, even
You
if,
guys,
Yeah, I mean,
you okay? I know you're going in between.
yeah, I think for me, it's easier to get caught up to speed if we meet again sooner than later.
yeah,
That's what I was gonna say.
I would-
We're
I would
new.
agree.
Yep.
I feel like we're probably more excited. I'd be happy to keep meeting at the,
monthly until we figure out, till we get our feet. Sounds good.
Even if it's a half an hour,
Yeah.
just let's bang this out,
I agree.
and the 4 o'clock still works good for you.
Yeah, is it okay for you?
Yeah, no, it's fine,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Tim. I don't know, maybe.
He's good.
Yeah.
I think he just had something going on today.
Okay.
So,
So, all right, next month then, day would that be, Chris? Is that the week is that good for everybody? Fourth of July, that kind of a?
yeah.
So it's the week after the fourth.
That's the first Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Or no,
Second Tuesday. Second Tuesday we
Second
do.
Tuesday, because July 4th is on a Thursday this year. So it'd be the second week of July. Yeah, that's fine.
I'd be outside of.
Yep,
Set
all right. That
Right.
works.
Perfect. That sounds good. That's what we'll do.
Thank you.
So next up is just kind of the EDA project updates. I'll just go over this quick. Article 7, also known as previously known as the Lilly Project redevelopment. Construction is well underway, as you guys can see, and planned to be completed and open to move into the fall of 2024. Temporary leasing office is currently being set up at the northwest corner of 7th Avenue and Margaret Street. So hopefully they'll start finding people that can sign up for it. Delaware Place plat is moving along. Doug Anderson, Andersbilt LLC, entering into a contract for private development with the city to build 10 townhouse units, 5 duplexes of sorts, on the city-owned property at the northeast corner of 17th Avenue and Delaware Avenue. Preliminary plat, planned unit development and rezoning application was submitted, and that part is done. They're waiting on hearing from the watershed at this point for the pond that they have to build there. And then they'll move on to the final plat, and then move into the development agreement, and get moving forward on that. They're excited about it. In late, Market Street Commons, in late '23, staff engaged a surveyor to replat the development site to combine the redevelopment lots, separate them from the parking lot, and establish necessary utility easements. The plating process was complete with the final plat approval by City Council on March 19th of 2024. City-owned parcels were conveyed to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority at the time. A party is interested in developing the Market Street Commons. We'll present a proposal to the City Council coming up next week. And that's actually the second one that was interested in that. We've had another one as well, so we'll see how that goes moving forward. Hopefully we can have a couple of options to choose from. Taco Bell's coming along. They've, site plan was approved in '23. They've tore down the old oil can Henry's building that was there, and building permit has been applied for and been issued. The project is underway. Pine Tree Center, fire inspectors went through the building about a year ago. I'm assuming people know that, so that's the building on the southwest corner of South and 120. So fire inspectors went through the property about a year ago to make sure some of the minimum requirements were being addressed. Fire sprinkler system, manual tested and inspected, properly secured, and exterior maintenance items. The property owner was given a list of items to be completed on the inside and have not been completed, missing ceiling tiles and other items that could be addressed with a new tenant. There's nothing at the time that would lead to enforcement officers to consider it a hazardous building or condemn it. Staff attempted to reach the property owner, but have not been successful in getting a hold of him. I've left him a couple of messages and have not heard back from him either. There was rumors that he had thought about developing the site at one time, so we're just not sure yet. Hopefully more information to come. And as you know, Pizza Factory's the last business in that building that has been bought out, now named Buddy's Pizza Factory. Currently operating it, but it's my understanding they might be moving out of town in the months to come. That's
The
all I
only
had.
other one is the one between Sidewinders that the EDA decided to hold on to. We really haven't done anything with yet.
Yeah, no, good. I'm glad you brought that up. So the city wanted to sell the property or get it developed, really. Went to a developer, a realtor, and the idea was the city wants to hold onto it so we can work with the developer so we can get something in there that we would rather have than somebody just buy it and then just sit on it and wait for it to, the price to increase later to sell it. And so we're looking to have the right people in there and develop it. So we've held on to it, and that would be good to move on into the next part with the staff updates for that, because as we were talking before with, when you brought up a consultant, and just so I'm clear, I didn't know that the consultant was gonna, or somebody with experience could take over the development part of it, or the consultant part of it, because part of what they do is almost like broker work. So if a developer is outstate, doesn't live here in the Twin Cities, but, I'd like to invest somewhere in the Twin Cities, how do I find out if you have property for sale, the size of it, and where to look for that? I mean, they aren't gonna know to call North St. Paul or Excelsior or whatever cities, so it's getting our name out there in a group to where developers, when they look for that stuff, they go to these groups, and then our name could be in that hat. No matter who we are here, I mean, unless they call us, we wouldn't know that. That's what these services are for. So, and I reached out to Baker Tilly, Brandy, before she left, put together a list. I talked to Baker Tilly. She said she was gonna get some information together and send it back. I was hoping it'd be here for the meeting today, but I have not heard back from them. So more information to come on that, on whether a consultant is something that is worthwhile looking into and seeing if that would fit our needs as far as getting our name out there and making sure people know that we have some places that might be available for development.
That makes sense. I mean, that's part of it, where how far can you get out so that people know? So, I mean, those guys are in circles. Hey, I got a place with my wife in real estate, you know. Oh, you gotta look for a house? I got one over here in Hudson.
Exactly.
Whatever. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest part is the networking, the word of mouth.
And clearly, I mean, a community development director is heavily involved when it comes to development agreements and working our way through the process and bringing that information to council. So, but it's just that extra step that we're looking for. So, and the Market Street Commons across the street there, like I said, we have a lady that is going to be coming to the workshop next week, just briefly. She was just going to put together a conceptual concept of maybe what they could be putting there. I think the idea was probably more apartments. But we've also had, like I said, we've had another developer that might be looking at that as well. So it'd be nice to be able to compare any proposals that might come forward before making any decisions with those. We did have a side meeting with one, and they may be interested in asking for time to put a moratorium on looking other places or allowing other people to look at it to kind of get their ducks in a row for the financing and stuff. But so that'll be up to council to make that decision at that point when that comes forward. Wouldn't happen in a workshop. I mean, there's no official business there that council would make a decision on, but she may stick around and ask for that. But that'll be up to you guys.
I went right across the street from City Hall with the fire trucks and ambulances. It just sounds like it's,
And we are already having sometimes sizable issues with even the downtown area, you know. I mean, Sentinel's a beautiful building. I know the Lily Building's gonna be great as well, but people really don't like having snowplows going down their road at 2 a.m. And, you know, if you're backing up and the beeps, and so we deal with that on a regular basis.
I think that's just something to keep in mind for living right across. That'd be kind of tough.
Yeah.
Right. You hope people take that into consideration before they buy.
Sometimes people move in and go, well, that's what's expected. Somebody move in and say, well, that's gotta change. You
Yep,
just have to realize it ain't gonna change.
right. And that is all I had for you, so.
Great,
we can move
thank
on.
you very much. All right. Member updates. Well, we don't have any updates yet. We're gonna have introductions because I don't know how to say your last name.
Bramscher,
Bramscher?
yes.
Bramscher?
Yep.
All right, because I can't keep saying Brandon and Joe and Peter. I'll get in trouble for the official record. And Gagliardi.
Gagliardi.
Any chance you can change that?
There are some Gagliardis, but they're not related to us.
Say it again.
Gagliardi.
Gagliardi. All right, Gagliardi. I'll get it. And
Do it. Bramscher,
Bramscher.
yes.
Okay. Got it. Mr. Bramscher. Member Bramscher, would you please do an introduction and tell us about you? please?
Sure. Brandon Bramscher. Thanks for the opportunity. I grew up in North St. Paul. I am the current owner of Max Diner in downtown North St. Paul. I am committed to this town. This is always going to be my hometown. 1990 graduate of North. Yeah, anything that I can do to kind of keep the ball rolling. I always talk about how many great things are happening in this town. And for, you know, having been around for a long time, it was very stagnant for a lot of years. And in the last few years, it's kind of, you know, really, it's heartening to see the revitalization that's happening. And I just hope that I can play even a small role in kind of keeping that momentum going.
Awesome. Well, thank you and welcome and appreciate it. We always, you know, we appreciate your support you've given for all the different things. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We don't eat out much. My family's getting bigger, but we make a commitment to Max. It's been kind of a thing that, like, it's an awesome diner. It's great going there.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
That's great.
Why don't you go next, then we'll go to the old timers after.
All right, I'm Peter. I am
No, you gotta say your
Gagliardi.
last name.
I am
Come on.
Peter Gagliardi.
We gotta say it, you gotta say it.
I am related to the coach. He's my grandfather. I moved here with my wife 7 years ago and grew up in Hudson, so just across the river, in the Twin Cities. Hudson is a suburb. It's basically Minnesota. So grew up in the area, and my family all live in the surrounding area, which is pretty big. But yeah, we moved here 7 years ago and briefly moved to Maplewood and then retreated back here pretty quickly. And hopefully are attempting to fix up a house down on 18th. But, you know, North St. Paul was not on our radar when we were looking for homes, but it had a great home and continued to have, you know, when we moved to Maplewood, we felt that loss of neighborhood life, and we're pretty quick to get back here. So we're happy to be here, and you know, doing all I can to encourage more young families to move to North St. Paul. It's been great, and I'm excited to be on the board and help any way I can.
Awesome. Can you give me some background on your business too?
Yeah, so I have worked for 2 startups. So I'm a physicist by degree, but currently I'm in sales for NetSuite Consulting, which is just business software. I've worked for 2 startups. First one was an agricultural drone company, and now I'm working for this NetSuite Consulting company. We opened up the branch up here, me and 2 of my brothers, and we're in Oakdale now, but maybe we'll move to North St. Paul. That'd be nice. It wouldn't be the first time we looked at office space in North St. Paul, so it'd be cool. I'm interested to see what's downtown there. But yeah, so my degree is in physics, but I've been working in sales and ERP consulting for about 4 years now.
Oh, good.
Nice, good for you.
Yeah, well, welcome. Glad to have you both on with us. It's
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Any update, old timer?
Glad to be back in the chair
Yeah.
and having a meeting. Super excited to have you guys be part of the meeting. There are a lot of good things going on in the city that I've seen over the last 8 years. That's how long I've been in the city. It's fun to see. It's fun to be part of, see the growth and involvement, and be a part of that little success that we can provide. So, thanks for joining up and being part of the EDA.
Thank you. Same here. I'm just excited to have us. I was really looking forward to this meeting and being able to get together and all these good things that are happening. So let's just continue and keep chugging at it and keep knocking it down, and we'll see where we go. All right. If not, if nothing else, I'll call for adjournment.
So moved.
So move. Member Matthews. Who's going to do second?
Seconded.
Member Gagliardi. No?
Gagliardi.
Gagliardi. I was so close. Gagliardi. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.